coming to this session at the Research Culture and Practice Forum on Concordats 101. What are they and how do they drive positive research culture? My name is Tom Rowe and I'm a policy advisor at Universities UK, and I'm also the secretary at the Research and Development Concordat. Before we get started, just a quick reminder of some of the housekeeping rules. So please use the Q&A function to ask your questions to our speakers, and you can use the chat function to speak with other attendees. However, do not use the chat. These won't be seen by the panelists. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the UK Events YouTube page, and you'll receive an email from UK once this is available to you. So if you find the session useful, do feel free to share it across your communities and network. So this session will hopefully sort of set the scene for the rest of the discussions over the next 2 days by providing an overview of a number of the different research culture concordats and initiatives. So many of you might be familiar already with a lot of the information we're about to hear, but I think it can always be helpful to take a step back and I think refresh our understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve and what are the collective values and behaviours that we aspire to as a community, and how do and initiatives sort of work towards those goals. So just by way of background, so concordats and agreements, we know they make up a huge part of the landscape of frameworks and good practices which help to shape research. They've shown to be very important, I think, for focusing the attention of the community and senior leaders as well on key issues. They also mobilise and I think provide a mandate for action on those important issues. And they also help to inform strategies and policies of institutions. And I think most importantly, they're very effective at breaking down some of the silos that maybe exist between organisations and encourage that collaboration and shared learning. So yeah, I'm very pleased to be joined on the panel by some great speakers and representatives from the different steering groups. We have Rebecca Veach, who is the head of research integrity at UKRI, Dr. Mark Rushforth, who is the associate director of enterprise and innovation at Lancaster University, and Simon Breeden, who is an associate lead of the technician commitment. So I'm going to kick things off with a quick presentation on the Research Development Concordat, and while speakers are giving their presentations, please do start sending in your questions to the Q&A function. And panelists, if you're happy to sort of keep an eye on that while not presenting, that'd be great. Okay, so I am just going to share my screen, and hopefully my sound is my sound okay? It's not too bad, is it? Okay. Okay, so hopefully everyone can hear that and see that. So yes, just to start with a bit of background about it. So when universities and funders and research institutes sign the Concordat, they're signalling their commitment to supporting the professional development of their research staff. Implementation is intended to be light touch and flexible, so it can be used by many different types of institutions, some of which employ a large number of research staff, some very few. There's not really a one-size-fits-all approach. Employers can demonstrate their commitment. For example, they can prioritise certain areas of at the start. It's also a living document, so it kind of adapts to the changing research environment, and it's regularly under review by the steering group to ensure that it continues to meet priorities and objectives of the community. And finally, it's intended to be an aspirational document. So what I mean by that is it's about supporting continuous improvement and empowering institutions to try and achieve their objectives. It's not about regulation. So if there is an instance where an institution commits to an objective or an action and is unable to achieve that, that's an opportunity for sort of learning and for, I guess, at an institutional level, but also at a sort of strategic level about some of those systemic challenges that exist in the sector. So the Concordat has 3 core principles: environment and culture, which recognises the importance of developing positive and healthy and inclusive environments which will allow researchers to flourish and achieve their full potential. We have employment as well, which focuses on addressing some of those long-standing challenges around insecurity of employment and career progression. and ensuring equality of experience and opportunity, sort of irrespective of background or contract type, career stage. And thirdly is professional development, which recognises, I think, particularly in an increasingly diverse sort of global research environment and employment market, researchers need to be equipped and supported to be adaptable and flexible to work both in academia and beyond. So achieving the outcomes of the Concordat is very much a collective responsibility, and I've listed the 4 key stakeholder groups here. The Concordat's been created for the benefit of the whole research community, those conducting and managing research, but it will also benefit the quality of the research itself. And just to maybe preempt a potential question, what does the Concordat sort of define within its remit as researchers? Because aware that we have a lot of groups of individuals at institutions who do actively engage in research, and that will include postgraduate researchers and clinicians, technicians, professional support staff. You know, these groups will all benefit from implementation of the Concordat. However, the primary audience at this stage does remain research-only staff in the recognition that they will have their own unique context, challenges and approaches, priorities, which will need tailored approaches. So just to highlight a couple of key alignments, the Concordat aligns with a number of other initiatives and strategies and initiatives in the sector. The key one is the people and culture strategy, and the Concordat is a tool to kind of catalyse the objectives in that UK government strategy, which does outline its ambition to attract and retain an additional 150,000 researchers by 2030. And the Concordats helps sort of facilitate this and supports the objectives by aiming to create a more positive, diverse and inclusive research culture. We also work closely with VTI, who manage the HR Excellence in Research Award, and we make sure that the reporting mechanisms for both the Concordat and the award are aligned, and as part of our sort of burden on institutions where possible. So in May, the Concordats Steering Group, we published our annual report for 2022, and the link to the publication is in the slides, which we'll share after. But it features the first comprehensive analysis of Concordat action plans from institutions and their progress in implementing some of the principles. I think it really showcased the high level of engagement and ambition in the sector, features a range of examples of good practice approaches as well. I don't have time to sort of go through all the findings and activities, but I guess just to highlight a few opportunities and areas of progress that were shining through. I think, for example, we've seen an enhanced focus on mental health and wellbeing support, I think particularly off the back of the pandemic. And the feedback from research staff is kind of showing that there is an overall sort of engagement and perceived usefulness of these services. EDI as well, we're seeing a strong commitment to embedding diverse representation into decision-making structures, including implementation working groups, governing groups, and structures as well. We're also seeing an increasing value in the wider contributions and skills of research staff. For example, awards for leadership and knowledge exchange, mentoring, public engagement, and things like that. And also embedding that recognition in, I guess, performance reviews and progression plans. And we're seeing institutions work to provide opportunities, time as well, and structured support for research staff to take their 10 days of professional development per year. And stronger links as well with industry, for example, through shadow schemes, incorporating collaboration pathways into academic career frameworks, things like that. But of course, there's still sort of a lot to do, and I think in 2023, the Concordats Steering Group is committed to addressing and prioritising these systemic challenges. So we're looking to launch an open discussion with researchers, funders and employers to improve the terms of employment and address career precarity, as well as try and gain a better understanding of career paths, both in academia and beyond. And we'll also be looking to support the outcomes of the Concordats and agreements to try and align better with other relevant initiatives in the sector and reduce overall bureaucracy. So think these topics will be explored in later sessions over the course of the 2 days. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to signpost some potential links and opportunities to engage. Obviously, the key to continued progress, big part of it is the sharing of good practice, and we have a dedicated website for the Concordat where we provide opportunity for researchers and research-related staff to share their examples of initiatives at their institution that have improved their careers, their lifestyle, or their research culture. And we also have the platform of practice where we can see good examples of case studies submitted by institutions as well. And here I've just highlighted, I think, a number of links to, for example, toolkits that people might find helpful. We also have some upcoming events and conferences, and there are also links to information on reporting, so guidance there. So I'm going to stop there, and like I say, I'll share these slides after the event. And yeah, there's my email if anyone wants to get in touch and that, then always happy to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there, and going to pass over to Rebecca, if that's okay.
Great, thanks, Tom. And can I check that you can hear me okay? Because my neighbors are having trees cut down at the moment. Right. I'll speak very loudly, and let me just pull up. And can you see my presentation okay? Great, thank you. So I'll get started. Please do just shout in case you can't hear me because of the noise in the background. But I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me. As Tom said, my name is Rebecca Beach. I'm the Head of Research Integrity at UKRI. As you can imagine from my title, this Concordat is integral to my work and important to all of us who are signatories. Really excited to talk about it. So I've only got a few minutes, we're going to jump right in. So let's start with what integrity is. And the reason I want to start there is because research integrity can be sometimes an inaccessible term. So if we start with integrity and think about what it is, we'll apply it to research. So integrity is defined as a quality, one of honesty and strong moral principles. And therefore, research carried out with integrity is expected to uphold the 5 principles you see on your screen. Hopefully, you can see them all, but sorry about that. And the Concordat that I'm here to talk about, the Concordat to Support Research Integrity, was originally published in 2012 with 4 key principles. Those are honesty, rigor, transparency and open communication, care and respect. The Concordat was revised and updated in 2019, and accountability was added. There's a lot of detail under each of these, but I don't have time to go through that today. So what I just want to focus on is that the purpose of this Concordat is that it is expected that when research is conducted with these principles in mind, then that research is going to be trustworthy, which will give us confidence in the research process and outcomes or findings. And there's a big question about why do we need such a Concordat? And that's because having a common language to discuss research integrity gives us a way to discuss trust in the research system, including progress on initiatives and actions taken to promote research integrity, as well as those taken to mitigate against misconduct. Now, none of this is new, and in fact, previous surveys have indicated that the research community is overwhelmingly motivated by these values. The UKRI commissioned landscape study into research integrity, which was published in 2020, noted that 99% of respondents agreed that personal integrity drove the research integrity. However, and this gets to why responding at least some of the time. So we all need 9% or integrity doesn't. We know that questionable research practices and intentional research misconduct are issues the system must regularly address. But the Concordat is about much more than mitigating against the bad. It's there to provide a mechanism to help recognize and promote high integrity across the research system. So asking who it's for is then an interesting question, because the integrity of the research system is important to everyone. Within the Concordat, there are expectations for funders, employers, and researchers. But looking at it from a much wider system perspective reminds us of the audience, the wider audience, that needs to have trust that there's high integrity across the system. So now I'm going to move back to looking at the Concordat itself. And the Concordat to support research integrity is set up a bit differently than some of the others. It has a set of signatories, and apologies to my fellow signatories because I'll make sure their logos are on the slide when it's passed around. But our expectation is that all of our members or those that we fund or employ will adhere to those 5 commitments you can see on your screen. And as a group, we meet quarterly to discuss efforts to embed these commitments across the system, as well as identify emerging issues related to integrity and misconduct. Now, interestingly for us, the Concordat is due to be reviewed in about 2024-25, and we're really focused on what that's going to look like, particularly considering the Concordat and Agreements Phase 2 publication, as well as the parliamentary report, which I'll come back to. But before moving on, I want to focus on one specific key activity, which is the publication of annual statements of research integrity, which all signatories expect research performing organizations to produce and publish. These statements are an opportunity to highlight work taking place across organizations. That's the work that supports and promotes integrity, as well as to detail information about cases of misconduct that have been managed throughout the year. And this includes, really importantly, learning that organizations have taken from those cases. Now, I mentioned parliamentary interest, and I want to talk about that because the audience for this Concordat is really important. Now, as I said, the principles are the foundation of a strong and trustworthy research system. As such, it's not surprising that there has been and there continues to be parliamentary interest in the integrity of the system. And last month, the Science, Innovation and Technology Committee published their report following an inquiry into reproducibility and research integrity. It includes a range of recommendations, and those are applicable both to all of us presenting across these 2 days, as well as those attending. And it highlights the necessity of having a trustworthy research system and how important that is to both the beneficiaries of research, those participating in the research system, and those working in the research system. And that report, I'd have to say, is an indication of how important this is and how much interest there is across Parliament in this. But it also builds on that there was interest in the 2017 post note and the 2018 report on research integrity. Now, we were asked to talk about research culture and the intersection between our concordats and research culture. And this is an interesting one. I've given a lot of thought to this, as you can imagine, over the last few years. And I've heard a lot of people talk about research culture being an umbrella or a banner we can use, where we put things like integrity and open research practices underneath it. But what I like, particularly at the moment, because it's given me a nice smiley face, is to think about the principles of research integrity as part of the foundation for establishing a positive research culture. But in turn, the positive research culture then reinforces these principles. So we've got that really nice positive cyclical relationship. And it means that research integrity is an integral part of the research culture and environment. Now, I wanted to save a few minutes. I know I've talked very quickly, but I want to talk about engaging with this Concordat and what you can do. I've talked a little bit about the signatories' expectations, but there's a lot that you can be involved in as well. So if you work in policy or research governance, this is an opportunity to review internal policies, processes, guidance, the template that the Concordat signatories have recently published. That's to support others we know that for some people, it's a real struggle to figure out what information to include, how much information this is meant to support them. It is in a pilot stage right now. So if you have tried it, we really appreciate your feedback. There's a website and there's an email address on the slide that you can link into to provide that feedback. But the other thing I want to talk about is encouraging discussion and really listen to how these things are felt to be on the ground. For example, we often hear from early career researchers that their experience is vastly, widely different from their more experienced peers. If you're a funder and not one of the signatories, I'd say you don't need to be a signatory to be involved in this. The commitments and principles are set out very clearly in the Concordat. So you can definitely look into those and see what your responsibility is and what you could be asking and looking for of those that you fund, and look at the annual statements, which should be available online so you can access them and look at the information in them. And then finally, just want to talk about those working in research, because regardless of the type of role or level of experience, Understanding what's expected of you and what you should expect of your peers, your managers, and your organization is really important. We have to hold each other to account when it comes to this, and that doesn't need to be negative. When we embed characteristics like honesty and transparency into our work and we role model those, we are in a position to expect that and to create that cyclical relationship where we're then driving positive behavior and practice. But also have a look at your organization's annual statement and see what's going on in that space. So the last thing I want to say is, if you're like me, you probably want a couple of specific things to focus on. And my short list is annual statements. If it's your responsibility to produce them, look at what you include, make sure they're up to date and they're published online. If it's not your responsibility to produce them, engage with them, see what information is in there. Training, this goes back to the responsibility that we all have for embedding this in our roles. Our roles change over time. Make sure you have the support and the information you need to embed research integrity in your role. And I didn't talk about safe spaces, but I want to leave you with this one, because I did mention questionable research practices and research misconduct. It's really important for high research integrity that more discussion and greater transparency is a part of the research system. Safe spaces are always going to be needed. People are always going to have questions about their own work and what they're seeing around them. And we need to create an environment in which people can talk about these things. So finally, I just want to encourage you to engage with principles, to really consider what they mean for you and your work, and to recognize the behaviors and practices you encounter that contribute to high research integrity. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. That's great. I'm now going to pass over to Mark to talk about the knowledge exchange. I think you're still sharing your screen. Oh, that's great.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So yes, over to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Yes, sir. Okay, can everybody see that, can they? Perfect, it's got a thumbs up there. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Rushforth. I'm from Lancaster University, where I am the Associate Director for Enterprise Innovation. So basically, I try and coordinate our kind of knowledge exchange activities through our kind of professional services team to support that. In terms of the session today, I'll just talk a bit about knowledge exchange at Lancaster to give some context, a bit then about the process that we went through, that we engaged with the knowledge exchange Concordat, particularly the kind of self-evaluation process that was required as part of that, and how some of the implementation of some of the priority actions that we developed have helped to embed and drive, you know, a positive culture. And then just at the end, some kind of personal observations of mine through going through this process and working in kind of knowledge exchange around Concordats more generally. I'm not quite sure of the understanding level of the audience, but I guess most people are aware that the knowledge exchange Concordat was kind of introduced in between 2020 and 21, led by, I think, Universities UK and Guild HE, and it was about, you know, designed to get universities to think about their knowledge exchange activities, basically how they went about it. And Lancaster, like I think over 100 universities in England, kind of sign up to this as a statement of, you know, wanting to improve, wanting to share best practice, and wanting to, you know, promote knowledge exchange and engagement activities, you know, within the institution and across the sector more broadly. So that's why this is important. So just very quickly about knowledge exchange at Lancaster. So it's pretty well established. You know, knowledge exchange or engagement is an equal pillar in our strategic plan alongside research and teaching. We've got strong senior academic leadership, both at kind of PVC level within faculties and within departments within faculties. We've got a large kind of professional team that kind of I try to coordinate, and again, some of that is based in a kind of central office. So I work in research and enterprise services, and many of you on the call, I guess, will have equivalent. So we've got people based here, but we've got people embedded in the faculties close to the academic areas of expertise. That's very important. We do generally pretty good in both the knowledge exchange framework and the higher education business and community interaction survey. But as someone who was at the heart of, I suppose, the knowledge exchange Concordat kind of process here, you know, this provided a real opportunity for us to give honest and inclusive reflections about how we do knowledge exchange rather than just what we do, how we go about it, because a lot of this activity has happened kind of rather organically, really, over quite a short space of time, and I think that's probably similar in some other institutions as well. So this really gave us a chance to have a proper look at what we do and how we go about things. So as part of the knowledge exchange Concordat, institutions are expected to go through a self-evaluation process. So, and again, I'm sure most people from different universities on the call will have done a similar thing in some way, shape, or form. So this was led from the very top, led by our Pro Vice Chancellor for Engagements. And again, for those of you who don't know, the knowledge exchange Concordat describes kind of 8 principles about how, you know, institutions may go about their knowledge exchange engagement activities. You know, clarity of mission, what policy and processes you have, recognition and reward, evaluating success, these kind of things. So, and with the documentation with the Concordat, there was a set of key enablers alongside within each principle that you know were indicators of you know things that you should be doing. So me and a couple of other senior individuals initially did kind of just a RAG analysis of these kind of key enablers under each principle. Again, the description of what we did on there, but you know, ranging from green, amber, and red. So we had a first pass at that. We then tested that with what we have. We have an engagement advisory group, which includes kind of faculty leadership, HR representation, even student representation. And we made sure we circulated that initial analysis in advance. So it wasn't, I'm going to keep coming back to this, it wasn't just a kind of paper exercise, a fait accompli. It was like, you know, this needs to be challenged, this needs to be tested. So we've had a first go to try and do some of the legwork, but now let's have your input and see, you know, for individual faculties, what their own analysis looks like. You know, if we missed anything, what areas can we show, can we demonstrate as best practice, and again we collated and shared all that before a bit of a get together, so people had a chance to, as I say, not only contribute but see what others had contributed and really make sure they were well informed about what we were doing. And again, you know, most of the discussion that we had was around different perspectives depending on where you sat in the university. So again, I don't think this is a surprising thing that a perspective from, you know, our Faculty of Science and Technology would be quite different from a perspective from our Arts and Social Sciences, for example. So that led to the drafting of a final action plan with key priority actions that everybody agreed to as part of the Enterprise Advisory Group. It was presented to Enterprise and Innovation Committee, and it was presented to the University Executive Board. So it really is, again, this is a bit of a cliche, but it really is a bit of a top-down, bottom-up approach with me and others somewhere in the middle. But it did make sure that right across the university there was recognition of the importance of the knowledge exchange Concordat, and how there was a collective responsibility to kind of identify and, you know, address some of these key priority actions. And it did. I stand by this. It did demonstrate real engagement across the campus, rather than just a bit of a fait accompli, rather than just ticking a box to say we've done that, we'll submit something and we'll move on. So our priority actions, our key priority actions were around recognition, reward, career development for professional staff, greater training related to knowledge exchange and engagement, better data capture, which is something that I know is the sector's looking at, rollout of a CRM system that, again, other universities, I suspect, know that can be quite challenging. And again, trying to incorporate more individual partner level feedback into the evaluation of our knowledge exchange work. So just some examples here, again, demonstrating the different types of institutional commitments to move these things forward and embed this culture around the Concordat and wider knowledge exchange. So we've made institutional investment through HIFE around the engagement and training for staff. We've made some sort of structural changes to get, and I'll talk about this on my next slide, to get the kind of research side of the division where I sit working with the knowledge exchange side. And we're trying to incorporate more partner level feedback into our evaluations using new approaches through something called the Innovation Catalyst, which is developed out of research out of our management school. And again, it's just about showing different types of commitments to do things differently. Just very, very quickly, because I know I'm out of time, just some personal observations that these aren't institutional ones. This is based on me and my own role and my own experience, that knowledge exchange, engagement, enterprise, business development, partnership development, impact research development, they're not the same. I'm not saying they're the same, but they're all a continuum and all interrelated. And that is worth bearing in mind, and use them kind of interchangeably depending on what I'm looking to achieve within the institution and outside. And to try and reflect this, we are looking at how we're structured to be more flexible and fluid across the systems I mentioned, how we operate and deploy our impact acceleration account funding that we have, and how we tie that up with individuals looking at ref impact, and also kind of research and enterprise contracts. There's always a disconnect between institutional, faculty, and department priorities. Just live with that. But again, with something like this, with a process like this, it's about getting everybody on board and just seeing that knowledge exchange, is important in the institution across the sector, and that's something everyone can get behind. Again, said this before, you go through this process, it's about focusing on the added value of these initiatives rather than just seeing it as an exercise, and using it to drive the agenda forward. And again, we use these things to stimulate debate, discussion, buy-in, and further embed this culture about the importance of knowledge exchange and broader engagement. And again, it's not just what we do, but how we go about it going forward. And sorry, that's a little bit over time, but that's me done. So I will stop sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That's great. So lastly, just going to hand over to Simon. Simon, over to you.
Unmuting is always helpful first, isn't it? So apologies for that. So hopefully you can see my slides at this stage. So rather than I'll go through what the technician commitment is and what it is, but I thought I'd just start off by saying who it is, okay? And this is because I want to get across that actually we're quite a small organisation. We run very lean. There's Kelly, who spoke earlier today, who's the programme director. Then there's myself, Claire and Mel, who are associate leads for it, along with Carly, who's project manager, tries to keep us in check, and Lauren and Holly, who work on the comms. And I guess the reason I put this in is to say that it's actually quite a lean, small team, but actually we speak with a powerful technician voice because we speak on behalf of a lot of technicians. And I guess that's that kind of, to use the phrase, the bottom up that was talking about just previously by the previous speaker. So what is it that we're trying to do? Well, hopefully, as you can see, we're trying to coordinate, drive and evaluate collective action across higher education and research to ensure the 4 pillars of the commitment, which is visibility, recognition, career development, sustainability of technical roles and skills, which are becoming ever more important as we've seen over the last number of years. The recognition of the requirement for technical skills from the government level down has certainly become much clearer. We work to ensure that technicians are motivated, engaged and proud to be technicians, and that others aspire to be them. There's a certain kind of there's a certain baggage that comes with the word technician. It's something that we've got to fight to retain back. What we kind of ended up doing, although I'm not entirely sure as part of the strategic plan to begin with, was to influence policy. And I've not gone into this in detail, but, you know, we were involved in various discussions at government level, you know, around the impact of Brexit, if you remember what that was, you know, working with on the people and culture strategy and the launch. You know, Kelly was present at the launch of the people and culture strategy, which for the technician voice is huge. And then we advocate technical careers in higher education and research and be an area of expertise. So what is it? It's actually a really simple document, and I think this very much helps in the engagement with, you know, the senior management team of universities. He said working in a university. So it's one side of A4, which is the bit that you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. And as I say, there are 4 pillars of visibility, recognition, career development, and sustainability. It's led by a steering board of sector bodies, chaired by Helen Payne, who is the Chief Executive of the Royal Society of Chemistry, with representatives from all areas within the ecosystem as well. But the advantages of it being a simple, easy to articulate kind of document is that it's able to engage with senior management and technicians on the ground. The links at the bottom if you need to know more. Very quickly going through, what are the resources that we've got available here? What is it that we're using to help drive that culture change that we've been asked to speak about? And we'll come back to that at the end. So we've got a great community, yeah? We've got over 110 universities and research institutes have now signed the technician commitment, yeah? Which, considering it's 5 years old, is pretty impressive rate of growth for a small organisation. We also have a number of supporter organisations, professional bodies, and we also beginning to go international, which is interesting. So, you know, it's small but growing, but there's great interest from outside the UK as well. There's guidance in action plans. I'll talk about this, that we obviously ask for action plans. There's action to networks covering all disciplines. Insight from reports. There's a great dearth of knowledge, a great gap in knowledge about the role of technicians in higher education. There's some funding to provide collaboration, and the toolkit providing advice and signposting, etc. Engagement opportunities. I'm not going to go through these in detail, given the fact we're running time. But what I want to get across is that it's very important that we engage with the community and beyond that community as well. And we do that through a number of things that you can see. One that I'd like to particularly highlight is the Herschel Programme for Women in Technical Leadership, which has been hugely successful. Like all sectors, we have our EDI challenges, but in particular, we had the EDI characteristics of the technical workforce in terms of male, female, are not too bad in certain areas. They're not great in physics and engineering, but in other areas, okay. But there was a lack of leadership, lack of female leaders. And so you supported the development of the Herschel Programme, and there are other opportunities as well. We want to talk about that impact. So it's really important that not only do we just have this commitment and universities sign it and then feel happy that they've signed a commitment to technicians. What we want to do is show the impact. And I can't go through this in detail, but when the slides are circulated, you will see that, you know, we are having that impact in all the areas we want to have it. This is an independent report that we got commissioned 5 years in to say, okay, so what work have we done? How have we improved things? Very quickly about the process, okay. It's a very light touch process. You sign the commitment. 13 months after that, you get asked by us for a self-assessment and action plan, where there are just five contextual questions to answer. It's important to us that you are evidence that the technician voice is heard. So we felt it's done by technicians and for technicians and not to technicians. You also should publicly state your technician commitment signatory status, and you should put your action plan on an easily visible web page, so you can be held to account to say, you said you were going to do these things as an institution, have you done them? And it needs to be signed off by your vice chancellor, president, whatever, and then it's peer reviewed by the technician commitment itself. Very quickly now, I just want to give you that's a little insight about the technician commitment and what it is. How it interacts with research culture in the future is what I'd like to talk about now. What we also did alongside the technician commitment, there's a sister project called MI Talent that's run out of the Midlands Midlands Innovation Network, where we're looking to develop strategic sector knowledge to go alongside that influence of behaviours of culture, improvements in culture through the technician commitment. And we're bringing those two together in what is going to be called the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy, which launches on the 1st of August, or maybe the 1st of September, not sure, okay, launches in August, okay, and what that is that's kind of an evolution and a bringing together of those two aspects. And as you can see, it's a very collaborative approach. You can see a list of all the partners on there. And what we will do is we will provide insight, influence and interventions to ensure that the UK has the technical capacity and capability to across academia, research, education and innovation to be a global superpower. This is what the government wish to do, and that's going to take technical skills and to make sure that those skills are recognised, understood and aspired to. I won't go into detail here, but as you can see, it's a multidisciplinary team, okay, building on the approach of the technician commitment. And there's a technical council to embed a culture of technical leadership in there, and that's drawn from technicians across the UK. And it will be done through essentially 4 hubs, which are to look at the insights. So that's an understanding of the technical roles. That's sector knowledge again. The influence, the policy and advocacy to inform. Innovation, to look at innovative practice, to see how we can support technicians and technical skills, and that integration piece. And so that's been supported by Research England. So just over £5 million over the next 3 years to make that happen. So ways to get connected, there's all the details that you can go through. That's a very, very whistle-stop tour, but I've gone through that to try and get a little bit of time in for questions and answers. So thank you for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Simon. And thank you to all the panelists for their excellent presentations and getting through so much in what is quite a short amount of time. We do have 5 minutes or so for questions. I think there's a couple that have come through that I think, Rebecca, there's one about the number of signatories, I think, to the Research Integrity Concordat, if you could type a response to that. But I'm going to ask, I think we have a question on how do you engage international students to the, I think it's the timing, it will be the Technician Commitment Initiative. So Simon, is that one you're happy to speak to?
So yes, I'm happy to answer that. What I would say is that the technician commitment is really, it's not primarily aimed at engaging with students. Obviously, students are a massive stakeholder in this. Yeah, we're all here to educate and inform and support our students, be they home students or international ones. And so one of the things that we do is that we, ensure that the technicians are visible and recognised across the institution. And so what we would do is we would survey the students to see how they were supported in their labs, their research facilities and their studio, in whatever that may be. And so what we would hope is that we provide the environment for those international students to sit into. So we don't engage directly with students, but they're obviously a significant stakeholder in making sure the commitment works.
Simon, I think we had a question that I think is quite a tricky one about sort of definitions, and I think spoke to it a bit, I touched on it a bit in my presentation about how the Concordat defines researchers. Simon, again, sorry, another one for you, I think, but how does the technician commitment define technicians?
Okay. So bearing in mind we've only got 15 minutes left, then we might not be able to get to the bottom of this. What I would say is that there are many definitions of technicians, and the way the technician approaches this is actually to flip the question round back on the institution. And the first question within the self-assessment process is, how does your institution define a technician, and how many technicians do you have? And that is a real interesting and variety of responses that we get to that. Some organizations go for maybe more a dictionary definition, you know, almost, you know, where you've got a one-line kind of a description of what a technician is, you know, usually something based around having significant practical skills, being able to, you know, communicate those, etc. Others will go for a much longer, more discursive description of what a technician is. But what I would say is that we try to be a very broad church. Okay, so we would if you, I guess it's self-identifying as a technician, then you're very welcome. So for example, Research Libraries UK are a supporter of the technician commitment because they have technicians, they have archivists. Yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of staff associated with managing data, which is a very technical kind of approach that is required there. So they would be involved. You know, it's not just in research. There's a question, I think, somewhere about the role of technicians in student education. And so, you know, the technician commitment is would encompass not just those research technicians, but technicians in teaching labs, for example, those who interact with students and, you know, the roles that they have in teaching students. We sometimes tie ourselves up in knots about the fact technicians who teach, you know, and call it demonstrating or training, but they're really important. And also that more pastoral element. We did a report 2 or 3 years ago about the importance of technicians in supporting student mental health, because often they're in labs and workshops with students, you know, on a much more informal and extended basis. So the answer to your question is, we don't really define what a technician is, but we encourage institutions to think carefully about them, and we guarantee you've got more in your organisation than you think you have.
Simon, and that's, yeah, getting a lot of appreciation, I think, from the attendees, that response. Conscious of time, time for maybe one more question. Mark, we have a question about avoiding duplication of effort, given that to a large extent, knowledge exchange, engaged research, key driver of research impacts, implementation, they all kind of similar things. Do you have a response to this question?
Yeah, I was avoiding this because I don't really have like a magic bullet answer for this. You know, so just a couple of things, I suppose. You know, as I said in my talk, you know, you try and look at these things, and I can appreciate, just from the knowledge exchange Concordat point of view, I can appreciate what that's trying to do. And as I said, you know, for the sector, and what me and others have tried to do, have tried to make that mean something internally. So you know, you can either look at it that it is duplication of effort or crossover with other things, but you know, what we try to do is use it to, as I said, you know, get people right across the institution thinking about knowledge exchange, the importance of knowledge exchange, and really embedding that culture, and also, you know, we are now trying to be, and it sounds an obvious thing to do, but be much more fluid and much more flexible across the research and enterprise knowledge exchange engagement elements of the division and the university more broadly, to try and limit that duplication, and to try and you know use these exercises. So for the knowledge exchange Concordat, just not knowledge exchange, think about it in the context of research impact and all that kind of things. You know, but there is a lot of activity across the sector, and you know, where it's a bit, where you hope, you know, where I hope that there can be avoidance of duplication is through, you know, encouraging all the various bodies, whether it's Universities UK with the K Concordat, or you know, there are various reviews going on of knowledge exchange led by Research England and the Higher Education Business Community Interaction Survey, that there's just some coordination of these things, because I think institutionally and sectorally we all broadly want the same thing, really. But Yeah, that's a really hand-wavy answer, but it's a tricky one, really. It's a tricky one. We just try and localize all these things for our own institutional context and try and make sure they're aligned in that way. That's the only thing we can do.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, I'm going to have to wrap up the session there. The next session is at 11:30 and will be an opportunity to hear from Concordat leads and people who are responsible for implementing the Concordat in practice. So do come along to that session. But thank you to everyone who attended, and thank you to the panelists as well for their excellent presentations. And to end the webinar there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.